All right.
Do we need to?
If we're broadcasting, as soon as we hit 7:30 in 45 seconds, we'll get started. So we're broadcasting? Okay. All right, well, we're about 30 seconds away. And the clock in the room is pretty close. How about that? Okay.
There you go.
All right, having reached the assigned hour of 7:30, it's my pleasure to call to order Township of Bridgewater Council meeting for today, May 4th, 2023. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of New Jersey, adequate notice of this meeting was provided on January 10th, 2023 with written notice and electronic notice provided to the Courier News and the Breeze, posting on the website and the bulletin board in the municipal building, and filing with the Township Clerk. Roll call, please.
Councilman Trudilla?
Here.
Councilman Nogales?
Here.
Councilman N.J.S.A? Councilman Rain?
Good evening, here.
Council President Burr?
Here. If everyone join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, I'll ask that it be led by Councilman Norgales.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and for the record, Councilman Pedroso has joined us. All right, we have minutes for approval. We have regular session minutes that were previously circulated.
Oh my God.
On March 30th and April 20th. So first we'll take March 30th. Does anybody have any incremental edits, changes, or suggestions?
I will need to recuse on that session because I was not here.
Okay. Any other comments from those who were here?
I'll move that.
Okay. All right. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those are approved. April 20th meeting.
I'll move those minutes.
But before we do that, are there any edits, changes, suggestions beyond what was circulated by staff?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving April 20th, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those are approved. Are closed session minutes being circulated?
March 6th and 30th, April 20th, we'll move to the next one.
Okay, so don't run away before seeing and initialing March 6th and March 30th. Council reports, starting with Councilman Norgales.
You know, sometimes there are fun things happen when you're on council, and one I really liked was the mail I received. Maybe we all receive it. It was a thank you note from the Girl Scout troop, and it says inside, "Dear Councilman Norgales, thank you so much for your approval of our bike safety project. Thank you for making time for us to hear our plans to keep roads safe. Sincerely, Troop 60029," and then it follows with a heart. I'm going to leave that with the clerk because I think that's worth maintaining for the future. At the invitation of the representatives in the Senior Citizen Center, Jennifer Osterberg, I attended the hour-long cooking class at the Senior Center. That day I was treated to a live creation of Judy Cosento and Jennifer's crustless broccoli and spinach quiche. It was a fun chance to see one of their many projects in action. I participated with the Bridgewater Women's Club in training at the Patriot Stadium to sell food products at the concession stand, with a portion of the proceeds going to the club's scholarship donation program. Training included safety awareness, proper food handling, and processing of receipts. The club women, including me and 2 other men, will take part during 3 baseball games in May, June, and July. Congratulations to Alex Fisher, our deputy attorney, in successfully defending the town at the appellate court hearing on the suit against Rise Against Hate. That organization sought to obtain the email addresses of all residents who subscribe to the township alert system. The mayor and council was strident in opposing this overreach, where our residents would be inundated by unsolicited communication by this group. The appellate ruling was in our favor, 3-0. Attended a luncheon with Patrick Delaney, the recently appointed Chief Administrative Office at R.W. Johnson, Somerset. Mr. Delaney hosted a group to talk about the new construction at their location in Somerville, and specifically to talk about their forward-looking medical advances and that were taking place at the hospital. I also attended the Open Public Meetings Act training, annual training, which was given by our attorney. That is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Vice President Ring.
Thank you. Good evening, Council, or thank you, Council President. I recently shared with Chief N.J.S.A of the Bridgewater Police Department a Facebook post that I wanted to share with the group. Individual posted this recently. The resident stated, "I was in an accident on Route 22 yesterday, and the man who I hit was extremely kind to me, handling it with reassurance and gentle wisdom while I was hysterically in tears. The police were also wonderful. Mitch, whoever you are, thank you, and thank you to Officer Aikens and Mendoza." And I think when someone causes an accident and thanks the police for how well they handled it, it speaks volumes about the professionalism of our police department. Saturday, April 22nd was a busy day. The day started in Bradley Gardens for Bradley Gardens Baseball for their annual opening day. The Bradley Gardens Baseball program is the oldest program in Bridgewater, and this year is experiencing some of the highest numbers of players in their history. Mayor Mensch once again had the opportunity to throw out the first pitch. While it was clear he's been practicing, it does not appear a professional contract is in the works for him anytime soon. I wish all the teams the best of luck this year. Later that morning, ICODE, a STEM program based on Prince Rogers Avenue, celebrated their grand opening with a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Bridgewater resident Kalesh Kiat operates this K-12 computer science education center. I sincerely hope they have a long and prosperous time in Bridgewater. Lastly, later that afternoon, I participated in the Earth Day program at Chimney Rock Park, where over 100 volunteers came together to plant flowers and place mulch throughout the park. Thank you to all the volunteers that came out, as well as Dickie Shimp and his Public Works team for their efforts to make this event such a success. Also, a huge thanks to those businesses that supported this event, in particular Gabriel's Fountain, Nature at Heart, and Lifetime. In some land use matters, as you may have heard, Signature Acquisitions had previously verbally notified the town of their intent to withdraw their application for 2 warehouses on Route 22 East. They are now advising that they need more time to make a decision on their plans. They are currently listed for the May 9th Zoning Board agenda. At that meeting, it is anticipated that their application will be carried till May 23rd. The Planning Board has been busy with several applications. Last week, the board heard a continuation of the M&M manufacturing application, with most time spent on traffic-related concerns. It was also announced at that meeting the previously submitted Target application has been formally withdrawn by the applicant. Earlier this week, the Planning Board held a special meeting which was added to help with the number of applications pending. GCP, which is the conversion of the Hyatt House Hotel to apartments, including 40 COA rental units, was heard. There was significant discussion about parking. The application was approved with a stipulation the town has the ability to require additional parking to be added at a later date if needed. The Planning Board also heard a 2-lot subdivision that night, which included significant discussion on stormwater management. The remainder of that application has been carried to another special meeting scheduled for June 13th. Lastly, on land use matters, the Planning Board is scheduled to hear the Center of Excellence application on May 16th. And lastly, for my report this evening, after months of rumors, Somerset County formally announced their intent to move forward with a process that should lead to the closure of the Somerset County Jail in Somerville later this year. When our police department transports someone under arrest to the jail, it requires 2 police officers. The time involved in these officers transporting an individual under arrest from Bridgewater to the jail in Somerville is much less than the time it will take to transport to another jail in another county. As Somerset County moves forward with this process, I hope and trust that the county will come up with a process that does not create an undue burden on our police department and the taxpayers of Bridgewater. That's my report.
Thank you. Councilman Cardillo.
The activity that I have to report is the grand day of the opening of the Bradley Gardens Little Loop. It's always a fun day. And also, as far as work goes, this week was the work session to award grants under the county CDBG program to our nonprofits. So that project is now completed.
Thank you. Councilman Pedrosa.
Thank you, sir. I attended many of the events that my fellow council members have said. I'm not going to repeat them again. I just want to focus my time on commending the administration. We got a wonderful email that I want to share. We got a lot of emails. Well, we'll get a lot of emails. Oftentimes people will write to us and complain. But we got a very wonderful email from the Salmas of the steeplechase. They had a great experience with our sewer department. And so I think it's worth sharing just a few highlights of the email. They said that they had an incident that occurred. Back to the finished basement. They called the township within 15 minutes. They called the sewer utility team was there. They were extremely kind, professional, and helpful. There are multiple objects that needed to clear, several obstacles to clear them. They didn't give up. They troubleshooted. They didn't throw in the towel early and stay in someone else's problem. They showed grit and determination to get the job done. I'm extremely grateful. The kindness they showed me, they fixed the issue. I'm so thankful. I reached out to the residents and I asked them if I could share this email today at the council meeting on the record. So they were kind enough to allow me to do so. Share my gratitude to the administration and the job well done and for providing exceptional service to our residents here in Bridgewater. So good job. Thank you to the sharing. Please share with the individuals who were involved in this job that I shared their story. Thank you.
Thank you. I have just a few brief items. Back on April 22nd, I went 2 out of 3, starting at Bradley Gardens Little Loop. And Mayor didn't take anybody out with his pitch, threw pretty close to a strike.
They cleared the field.
They threw in a different direction, kind of away from all the people. Maybe the Bridgewater baseball and softball needs to consider that as a good model. Also went to the I-Code business opening. Certainly a great story, and hopefully much success will occur with that business in Bridgewater. Want to note for everyone on the dais, anyone in the audience or online, in June we'll be meeting on the 8th and the 22nd, which is a slight deviation from our typical 1st and 3rd. That will actually be the 2nd and the 4th Thursdays, because there are 5 that month. This has already been published, so this is not new news. I'm just providing a reminder. The rationale there is that we will not have use of this room on June 1st as it's being prepared for early voting that I believe begins on June 2nd. So, it's really the whole, a few times there's a 3-week gap. We just shifted the 3-week gap during the month of June. And finally, it is our intention when we get to 9B, for anyone who is here and concerned and interested on that matter, it is our intention to carry 9B until June 22nd. The reason is that action by the planning board is required in advance of our taking action, and the planning board is scheduled at this point for that action on June 13th. The next meeting that we have after June 13th is June 22nd, and that is my report. Mayor, do you have a report tonight?
I do, very briefly. I just wanted to highlight a couple quick things. I want to thank the Pellegrino family. They hosted myself and Mr. Pappas today to look at the tour of the Avalon facility. Haven't been there, with COVID, we really didn't do a whole lot of visits to, senior citizen facilities. And they recently, well, a couple years ago now, but relatively recently redid that facility. So we had an opportunity just to meet with Don Pellegrino's daughter, Jessica, who, all Bridgewater residents, who she, was the day-to-day person there. Just gave us a little bit of a tour understanding of what they do there, the types of folks that live there versus, some of the other facilities that Avalon has in Bridgewater and Hillsborough, and learn about the services they provide. So I want to thank them for hosting us today. A couple other quick items. Within the next month, we are told that the AV system in this room will be replaced, and
By the end of this month.
yeah, so that's what I'm told. Mike, wanted to ask me whether I wanted to announce that now or make sure I wait until it's on schedule, but we'll take our chances. But that is imminent, so hopefully moving forward, for anybody who has audio issues with some of the equipment in this room, which is certainly out of date, hopefully that will be replaced.
One more meeting.
One more meeting.
And a higher definition camera, so,
Yeah.
dress
dress
and
nicer.
look accordingly.
Last item is we've been doing a lot of work getting ready to update our master plan. So just as an aside, we'll get into more details on this, but what our hope is, and we'll announce it, again, in more detail, is that we will schedule a couple public sessions where we can go to different areas of the community just to hear about any concerns that residents have, things they want us to look at in their area or that they see. We will also post the master plan. It's online now, but we'll make it more readily accessible with a comment type box or an ability that if residents either want to, if anybody wants to go through it line by line and give suggestions, God bless them, we'll take them. If you just want to, raise more general issues, we'll find the right sections in the master plan to see how it already addresses or doesn't address those concerns. So we're hoping to, reach out to the public to gather information that way. Scarlett Doyle and our professional staff has been reviewing it to make some initial recommendations. What my hope would be is to put together a subcommittee consisting of a couple members of the planning board, a couple members of the zoning board, a representative from the council, and of course the staff, the administrative staff, to review some of the initial recommendations that Scarlett has made or needs input from us on, take in the input from the public, and then be able to come back and essentially provide a, for lack of a better term, a red line document with the highlights, the bigger picture proposed changes, the red lines where people want to go through them. And then in the fall, we'll be able to present that to the council and the planning board for the appropriate bouncing back and forth that goes. So that's a kind of a big picture outline of the process that we see. So public will have multiple opportunities for input. It will be online. They can review it and give us comments to a dedicated, email type or referral system, whatever the OCR folks deem appropriate. They'll be able to come to public sessions if they want to talk there. We'll gather that information. We will then present it in the public. As a high-level overview, we'll probably have a presentation, I assume, at a council meeting at some point with the big picture items. But, there's a lot of, when you deal with planning, there's the big picture. Hey, what goes here in this zone or big changes. And then there's a lot of little things. We had a discussion today about generators. How do you handle generators? Are they accessory use? Are they permitted use? Are they partially permitted use? Do you have sign? So there's items that aren't the large master plan items, but that go into the master plan that some of these items need updating and need to be, has been updated in some of these things in a while. So anyway, so we'll have all that information to the public. They'll be able to see what we're proposing, and they can give additional comment before anything is acted on by the planning board or council sometime in the fall. And of course, all that has to be ultimately voted on, and there's public will have opportunity to come to those meetings. So that's just a big picture outline. Wanted to raise that with council, and certainly we'll have more discussions on that moving forward. So I think that's that's all my report. Thank you.
Okay, and then maybe for the second item, I have a question for either the mayor or the administrator. I don't see Bill Burr in the room. Will that be handled alternately or at a different date?
I would just handle that very briefly, just
Okay.
to cancel whenever you'd like me to.
I mean, do you want to speak right now in Bill, on Bill's behalf?
Sure. What he was going to briefly report to the council on is the EPA, in conjunction with the DEP, is undertaking audits of a number of municipalities with regard to stormwater management programs. And Bridgewater is one of those. There's been Dickie Schimpf and Bill Burr have been involved in meeting with them. They came and did an on-site visit last week. I took part in that meeting. They visited a number of sites around the township, and there'll be more to report later. But I just wanted to ensure that the council is aware of this.
Any questions? Okay. Let me then move to opening to the public, just with two reminders. One is that we do have a public hearing and final action at 9A, so if there is anyone who wants to speak on that, there will be a separate opportunity in just a few minutes to do that. And in addition, we will not be hearing 9B tonight. So with that, members of the public wishing to address the council on any matter will be allowed 2 minutes to speak unless there are unusual circumstances. I'll take a motion to open to the public.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are open to the public.
Good evening, Kathy Franco, 766 Weemac Road. I'm a little confused or concerned because I expected to get a presentation from Bill Burr tonight on stormwater management, which I thought would be very timely considering the storm we had earlier this week. Stormwater management has been an issue for myself as well as many members of or many residents of this community over the years. I have personally reached out to the township on 2 occasions to talk about stormwater management in my yard and on my road. This past weekend, when I came down Vossler, I hit Route 22, and there was between 6 and 8 inches of water at the bottom of 22, extending from Vossler all the way to Thompson Avenue. And that is runoff from Martinsville. So, you know, something is wrong in the way in which we're not catching it, we're not doing, and I know, yeah, we had between 5 and 6 inches of rain, but it was not a tropical storm. It was not a hurricane. And mind you, this is not the only time that this has occurred in the past 10 years or so. So I would hope that indeed Mr. Burr, which I have seen him at both planning and zoning board meetings. I know he's really working very hard along with Scarlett Doyle as they go through applications to make sure that we're catching water and we're retaining it. But we need to look deeper, and we need to make sure that this water, as it runs down, water is still running down Vossler tonight when I drove home tonight. It's still running down the eastbound side, the east side of Vossler. So we're not catching it, we're not retaining it, we're not holding it, and yeah, it becomes a problem, not just for us who live on the mountain, but then for our neighbors, for Bound Brook, for Findern, for those areas that are off the hill, and that's not fair. So I would hope that we indeed really look at stormwater management as we move forward, and correct those areas that we didn't correct previously. As I said, I think that as planning and zoning moves forward, they're really looking at things, but we need to somehow create catch basins because it's just a huge problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address council tonight?
Jennifer Lochran, 716 Falcon Court. I left my notes, so I have to wing it. We had the Earth Day event, and it was spectacularly successful. It really was. So many people came out, families and kids, and even people who just came to the parks, just took part in planting flowers and this art project and ice cream and I wanted to thank everybody that was involved in making that happen. But notably, I wanted to acknowledge Ted. I don't know Ted's last name, but he works for the Department of Public Works, and that was his day off. And he was there, and he was so much a part of the success of the entire event. But also, you know, the Parks Department and the Department of Public Works had to set it up for us, bring us, the dirt and the mulch and tables, and I'm just really appreciative for their effort on that. So the Parks Advisory Committee had decided that this really awesome poster is going to be our thank you card for Ted and the Department of Public Works. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but it was a really cool project that it survived a lot of nature. There was rain, there was wind, it was all over the place, but it was really cool. So thank you, and I hope you guys have a good night.
And before you leave, thank you for all of your efforts in leading such a successful day and memorable event.
Oh, can I also just add that this community policing program that I'm taking part in, that I'm going to run out of here for, has been just an incredible experience. I just did my ride-along today. Nothing happened. So it was literally a conversation in a car as we drove around. But I was with Officer Jack Kennedy, and he clearly trains other officers and is really great at conveying information and just sharing a lot. There was so much. I couldn't even begin to try to summarize what we talked about, but it was a really great experience, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address council tonight? Name and address for the record, please.
I'm Ken Schmidt, 1812 Bulmer Farm Road. I'm in Martinsville. Just on the wastewater management, I'm just curious if this, from what I heard, is this a reaction to a government agency, or is this proactive, like we're going to try to do something about fixing this? Because I live in Spring Run, and we have runoff from Washington Valley Road, and so I'm just curious, what's the approach here?
It's two separate. So the answer to the question is yes to both. The item that was on the agenda for tonight, which Mr. Pappas just briefed, has to do with the EPA specifically. EPA. EPA sounds like, let me make sure I get the right agency. Them doing their check to see essentially that local governments are doing what they're supposed to do with regard to stormwater management regulations and things like that. Separately, though, both in the master plan review, and we've also tried to start a universal drainage assessment program. Following Ida, we realized that there's tons of tributaries. I mean, we could spend a whole night just talking about that, about the ways that water flows through the Bridgewater that you wouldn't even realize. So the EPA issue is a reactive response that we're doing to make sure that we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing, and if we're not, making sure we fix it. The universal drainage assessment is our attempt to get in front of some of these projects. The difficulty is a lot of them are very localized. We just got a bunch of money through the federal government that's fixing up on Washington Valley Road. There's a tributary that was collapsed. It was coming into someone's yard. Those projects that really only impacted, say, one or two residents, but when it impacts them a lot. But it's a lot of money for a local project. So we are trying to come up with a long-term plan. It could be a long-term because it's money involved, but to address some of these concerns. Spring Run is a huge issue. We looked at that when we were looking at the roads and how we're going to go about doing roads. And when we do roads, we try to figure out if we can fix drainage while we're doing the roads. And I remember looking at a map of Spring Run area and how the water flows down there, and how do you address it? Can we address it? We don't want to pave the roads, then have the roads get torn up by the water. And so that's a really long-winded answer to your question, which is the specific item on here tonight is reactive to the EPA doing its review, its audit of local governments, but we are trying to be proactive when it comes to drainage.
Today's presentation was just about the EPA.
Yes, it's.
To that.
Yeah, if Mr. Burr was here, he was going to give a little bit more detail, but it's technical stuff. It's not getting into the issues that you're concerned about, which is, how do we address drainage and.
I understand which is which, and so.
Yeah.
If I could just add, the EPA, this is a regular audit that they conduct in municipalities all across the country. And Bridgewater is one of the communities in New Jersey that is undergoing that this year.
So it's great that we're doing that, and then probably need to do more, I guess.
Yeah, that's,
If I may, though, just add to the comments of what the mayor said, also just remind the public that at our last council meeting, this council voted and approved a ordinance change specifically on a floodplain requirements, based off a model template from the state. So there was significant changes made to our township ordinance at our last meeting regarding flood hazard maps and a floodplain administrator, and just overall updates to creating a new floodplain requirements section in the township ordinance, which is just one piece of the puzzle. But there are some other things that are going on and have been done in addition to what the mayor said.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address council tonight?
Good evening. My name is Andrew Bucko. I live on Berrywood Lane here in Bridgewater. And I am here to talk about the Kidd Street billboard. I know it's been stricken from today's agenda, but still, this is an important issue. Now, I think we've all seen the cartoonish diagrams that show what it's going to look like, but if you want to actually see what it will look like, take a drive down 202, 10, 15 minutes to see the one in Raritan. It's an ugly, out-of-place monstrosity. Bright, flashing lights, and I challenge anyone to see that and say, you know, that looks good. I want it in my town. It's going to be bright, flashing lights. Now, I've heard the justification is, well, 8 hours a day it will be off. Okay, so what is that? 10 to 6 at night, overnight, 11 to 7? It's still these bright, pulsating lights that are going to be visible, probably to the residents who do live in the area. The town is going to get $1 million. Sounds like a lot of money, right? Over the course of the 30 years that the lease is proposed to be for, that's only $2,800 a month. It's a drop in the bucket. Sounds like a big number, but over the course of that time frame, it is not. And since the town plans to spend all that money right away, what's going to happen? Are the other 3 that the developer wants to build, are they going to come back on the agenda after we spend all the money that that's paid for that? Now, this mayor ran on quality of life issues. Is a big, bright billboard quality of life? The first thing this mayor did was stop a development project that would have included housing and replace it with a warehouse. A warehouse that's going to bring in more trucks spewing asthma and cancer-causing pollutants into the air. Is that quality of life? Is the refusal to enforce noise ordinances or stop the use of motorized recreational vehicles on public roads quality of life? Is the refusal to hold the dump trucks that leave their loads all over the streets and highways going away from the quarry, is that quality of life? There are other things that this town can be doing to improve the quality of life, and getting a little bit of a payout to build a giant billboard is not one of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address us tonight?
Patty Selikoff, 16 Gibson Terrace, Bridgewater, New Jersey. So I'm going to bring up 2 subjects. The first subject was, as we all, sorry, allergies. So the first thing is, so one thing we know that I ran 4 years ago, and one of the things that I ran on was making recordings available to the public so that, if you have kids or you're not able to leave your home or just don't have time to make it to the council or planning boards or zoning boards, you can at least go online and listen to it and be caught up with township things. Because to be honest, your meeting minutes are not that great. It's good that they're there because at least you can kind of get an overview, but you miss a lot of, conversations back and forth and things like that. So the recordings are really helpful. Even though, so for the last 4 years, 3 years off and on, I've been continuing to request for the recordings. And I keep on putting them up on YouTube. And to be honest, it's a lot of work. I mean, we're talking like 3-4 hours of my time every month to do this. And this is not my job. Mr. Ring, you came up here 4 years ago. Like, you're like, oh, it's so simple. We're going to do this. 4 years later, the excuses come on. Oh, you know, we don't have the recording just right. We don't have the room just right. No one cares. Like, seriously, no one cares. I literally just take your recording and throw it up on YouTube. It's literally like your grandkids and your kids could do it. But, you know, I have other things I really would like to do, but I do feel like it is something that people do care. I mean, do I get a lot of views? Not a lot, but there's probably about 50 to 100 people who do log in and listen to them. So that's 50 to 100 people, maybe even more, because again, it's a public channel, but, you know, I don't go out. I try to advertise, but honestly, it's, again, not my job to do this. This is your guys' job, to make sure that people are informed, they know what's going on. And honestly, I'm just kind of tired of doing it. I really want to pass the baton to you guys to do this. Come on, like, just take the recordings, throw them up, make a YouTube channel. It's free. It doesn't cost you money. Yeah, it's going to cost someone's time in the administration, but I would hope that someone would have some time, because they're wasting their time to put it up on a Dropbox so I can download it and do it myself. So anyway, so that's one of the reasons. The other thing was, as we've gotten the budget coming out, and I know you guys are all reviewing it, I really do hope that you guys reconsider the lack of hazardous busing. You know, I know that you guys were pretty upset about the bill last year. I get it. It was a huge increase from last year. But just to be like, I'm pissed off, I don't feel like paying, is not that great. I will tell you, like, I did reach out to the superintendent. There's 450 walkers out of the 7,100 that are registered. So we have an abysmal amount of walkers. There is about 1,200 in Bridgewater that get hazardous busing. So that means that if this is not funded, but I know the school is stepping up and doing what's right, because that's the right thing to do, that means there'd be 1,200 kids that'll be getting into school in unsafe conditions. So, you know, and this comes down to, some of them are, you know, will have to happen anyways, just because, like, let's say the ones out in Milltown, you can't have them crossing 22. I mean, those people are gonna get bused. But there are definitely areas in this town where they get bused because we just don't have sidewalks to provide them safe walking. And honestly, from a resident side point, I mean, this is kind of a great thing. You buy a house in Bridgewater and you don't have to deal with sidewalks. I mean, I have to say, I hate sidewalks. I mean, who doesn't hate sidewalks? I mean, you gotta plow them in the summer or in the winter, and then your trees grow, and then they pop them up, and then you're spending thousands of dollars to replace the sidewalks. Honestly, it's kind of a nice perk as a homeowner not to have sidewalks. The other thing, you know, so, you know, that's the thing is, like, if we're not going to enforce, like, if we're not going to put in sidewalks, and I was going to remember the other thing. The other thing that's really great as a parent is, like, if you live within 2 miles, I mean, another perk to selling your house, your kids are going to get bused to school because we don't have sidewalks, so they get free busing. I mean, how many like towns bus so many students that live that close to school? And a lot of it's just because they don't have sidewalks. So it's like, unless we're going to, like, really start enforcing residents, which they're going to hate, because they're going to have to, either we're going to have to pay for it, or the residents are going to have to pay for the stupid sidewalks. They're not going to like that. So the other options, we just pay for hazard busing. Call it a day. It's really a township issue. It's not so much of a BOE issue. I really hope you guys reconsider that idea. And as you guys come up with the next, you know, come to voting on the budget, that you really do debate it and really reconsider putting it back into the budget.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address council? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to close.
Motion to close public input.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well, we will certainly be having a budget discussion. We'll have a full hearing in a couple of weeks, but one comment that was made that I think does deserve some response right now is the direction that this council, this administration, this council appears to be headed for this year is that the Board of Education is in the business of transporting students. The town is not. And while there may have been a multiple year history of a certain subsidy provided by the township, we'll have the hearing, we'll see where this goes, but it is our direction for this year and presumably for future years that it is the Board of Education's responsibility to transport its students as it does without subsidy from this governing body. We made that position pretty clear last year, that when we paid the bill, that was likely to be the last time. So as the Board of Education was constructing its budget, it certainly could have and should have been doing that with that knowledge up front.
Yeah, my understanding, I think, is that the school district did budget the money for it, and I think, I actually agree with Ms. Selikoff. I think, the school district's doing what it should do, and they're stepping up, and they're gonna, provide the hazardous busing. I agree with that. I think
Well, they're going to provide all the busing because that's what they
They're legally
do.
required to provide
Yeah,
the
that's
hazardous
what
busing.
they're doing. I mean, that's what should happen. That's what is happening. It's the right thing. It's
Council President, if I may just add to your comments too, there was some kind of, there was a mention of Milltown School and how students can't cross Route 22. I am not sure how students not being able to cross a state highway is a township problem that we should fund hazardous busing. Based upon that analogy, if students can't cross a state highway and there's a need for hazardous busing that the Board of Education feels is our responsibility, I would suggest they should ask the state of New Jersey to fund that since they maintain the highway. It's a state highway, we don't maintain it, and I'm not sure why that would cause us to have to provide hazardous busing.
And we may have further discussion on this in 2 weeks, but at least at this point, it appears to be the position of the administration and this council that busing is a school matter in totality, not in a portion with a subsidy from a different governing body. Okay, thank you. So let's move on.
Council President,
Yes.
a while back, the council had given me the task of communicating with the school to investigate the issue of hazardous busing, which I never took, and I had a couple of emails back and forth with Mr. Spars. However, I got to tell you, he kind of dropped the ball and communicated back to me. He never responded to my last email to him. And as of to this day, I'm still waiting for a response to my question.
we've had the same experience.
What was that?
We've had a similar experience in terms of, getting incomplete answers from the school district or not getting us the data that we've asked for. So
The simple analogy I would give is this. The school district buses the students. We manage the roads. We would never
We
ask the
manage
school.
some of the roads.
Well, we manage municipal roads. We would not be asking the school district to pave a road that's in or near its property. We would handle that. And likewise, they are in the business, among other things, of transporting and educating students.
At the end of the day, it's really a non-issue in the sense of the taxpayers of Bridgewater fund all of this. Whether it comes out of the left pocket or the right pocket, it's being paid for by the taxpayers, but by having it be done by the school district, we make sure that the costs are, it's not a way of getting more money from the taxpayers by inflating a bill that is not a real bill. So now the school district can make sure that it provides busing to all of its students. It can do so in whatever manner it believes is the best way to do so, the most cost-effective way to do so, the most efficient way to do so, whatever factors they go into busing, they can now do so. And the taxpayers can be assured that there's not an attempt to use the hazardous busing bill as a way of subsidizing non-busing related items. So it's a win-win all around.
It makes sense when you think about it. They manage the busing, they deal with the transportation department, they do the contract. With their budget, it just makes sense that they keep it under their purview.
Well, and it's one of these things where you can't figure out which kids actually use the hazardous busing. So, there's a lot of folks who may be entitled to the quote hazardous busing that don't use it. People who live within the area often drop their kids off at school. They don't, they have it, and the school district doesn't have that data. So we get a bill for hazardous busing, but we don't actually know how many kids are actually on the bus. There's a whole host of issues. I mean, at the end of the day, it's more efficient, it's easier, there's no questions, nobody has to wonder what the bill's for. School district will get whatever the costs are for transportation. They'll make whatever policy decisions they make with regard to transportation, and they'll fund it.
Okay, moving to 9A, public hearing and final action ordinance. This is 9A for calendar year 2023, an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and establish a cap bank. This is in accordance with N.J.S.A. 40A:4-45.14. Mr. Pappas, I know you gave a brief explanation last week. I don't know if you want to restate that, and then we can open to the public.
Just that this is an exercise that each governing body undertakes each budget year. It enables the municipality to bank an additional amount that they may or may not choose to utilize, and that's what this will accomplish. This governing body has done so in the past, and very infrequently has ever used it.
Okay, so I will take a motion to open to the public at 9A.
I'll make
That motion.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are again open to the public for the purposes of this topic, 9A, the municipal budget appropriation and the cap bank. Anyone wishing to address council on that topic?
Move to close public input. A motion for final action on 9A.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, let's go to roll call, please.
Councilman Cardillo?
Yes.
Councilman Nogales?
Yes.
Councilman N.J.S.A?
No.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
Council President Burr?
Yes. Now at 9B, I'm going to read it and then explain the action or really the lack of action tonight. Ordinance awarding a lease to construct a monument display on a portion of township-owned property located at 100 Commons Way, Bridgewater, New Jersey, and identified as Lot 42, Block 411.01 of the Bridgewater Township Tax Map to 100 Commons L, Bridgewater LH LLC. They are located at 3400 West Chester Pike in Newtown Square, Pennsylvania, 19073, having submitted the only bid in the amount of $1 million one-time fee and $12,000 annually. I am now notifying the public and any other interested parties that this item will be carried until June 22nd with no further notice and no further publication, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving to ordinances. 10A, an ordinance creating a new Chapter 30 of the Municipal Code of the Township of Bridgewater entitled Emergency Medical Services Advisory Committee for the purposes of creating said committee. Am I turning to either the mayor, the administrator, or Council Vice President Ring to provide some guidance?
I'd like to make just one quick comment. I just want to commend Councilman Ring on the work that he's done on this ordinance. We have several members here who, of course, have been involved in the emergency services family for many years. I won't even try to add up how many years Howard and Alan have on fire. Tim and Philippe at one point in time, has been involved with EMS, and Tim's been involved with EMS for a long time. And I know this has been a project he's been very enthusiastic over, and I just want to commend him for his work on this. I'll let Tim go through any of the substance he wants to. It's
Thank you.
Great
It's
job.
really, Wells is, the Deputy Administrator Winter is actually the one who has driven this specific ordinance. But just briefly from a background point of view, this governing body through a shared services agreement with other towns has had a contract for daytime ambulance for service as a backup to our volunteers for over 20 years. There was previously a vendor who managed that relationship who charged an annual fee for that. Last year, in conjunction with us going out to bid for another contract on the ambulance service, a decision was made that we did not need to have the taxpayers pay to fund that service, that third-party vendor, that we could manage this in-house. So part of that discussion was around creating a committee to help oversee the performance of that contract, as well as kind of looking forward. Emergency medical services as a whole today is struggling for EMTs like much of the healthcare industry. In fact, our volunteer community-based organizations are frequently now being called to cover calls that the hospital does not have the resources to respond to. So the other piece of this is this committee looking at what we can do moving forward for EMS. I know there's been some comments regarding the detail of the different members who would comprise this committee. EMS touches a large piece of our community. We felt it was important to get representation from each of the different sectors, which is why the ordinance has the different breakdown of the different membership. So that's kind of some of the history on it. As I said, Deputy Administrator Wininger is actually the one who took the lead in getting this drafted. It was shared throughout the emergency services community in Bridgewater prior to this for any comment from the leadership of our EMS organizations. So I'm happy to move 10A.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, is there any discussion, or can we move to a vote? Let's go to a vote on 10A, please.
Councilman Padilla?
Yes.
Councilman Nogales?
Yes.
Councilman Joseph?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Kirk?
Yes, and can we have a date set for that hearing, please?
Yes, the public hearing and final action will be the 18th day of May 2023, 7:30 p.m. here in the council chamber.
Which, just as a side note, happens to be National EMS Week.
Well, I don't know if you planned it that way, or, you know.
It worked out that way.
Some-
on the
some-
calendar.
some-
When we were mapping it out, it worked out.
Sounds
that
like a
way.
presentation.
It's,
Sounds like,
Sometimes you're good and sometimes you're lucky.
it worked out that way.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Council Vice President Ring, for your leadership here. Moving to resolutions, 11A, authorizing submission of the fiscal year 2023-24 Bridgewater Raritan Municipal Alliance request for application with Somerset County Board of County Commissioners in the amount of $22,575.36. Mr. Pappas, any explanation?
This is an annual submission, and we expect a successful outcome.
I'll move 11A.
I'll second it with a note. I did also ask to confirm and have received confirmation our cash match is in the budget.
Great. A vote at 11A, please.
Councilman Padilla?
Yes.
Councilman Nogales?
Yes.
Councilman Joseph?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Kirk?
Yes. 11B, this is authorizing an award of contract to Round Hill Risk Partners, LLC, located at 788 Morris Turnpike, Suite 101, in Short Hills, New Jersey, 07078, for transitional services related to the township's transition to the State Health Benefits Plan as an adjunct risk management service for health insurance for a term of 1 year commencing January 1st, 2023, pursuant to the fair and open process as defined by N.J.S.A. 19:44A-20.7, to be compensated in an amount not to exceed $290,000. Mr. Pappas, explanation, please.
Yes, thank you. When the township was confronted with significant increases in our medical insurance costs, Round Hill, our risk manager, began to pursue options. The most cost-effective option that would actually see a significant lessening of the increase that we would have faced was the State Health Benefits Plan. That would have, that meant with the transition, we have several hundred employees and approximately 150 retirees that had to be assisted in the enrollment process. And in many instances, many of those individuals needed significant assistance in that transition. And so this is an appropriate attempt, I believe, to compensate this organization who committed a significant amount of time, staff time, that were here. I can't tell you, countless days interacting with individuals, in some instances going to individuals' homes, retirees, to assist them in this transition. And the assistance that they provide continues. As you know, that beginning of this year, we transitioned to a different prescription plan, and that required additional transition enrollment for the same individuals that I've mentioned here. So I believe it's a very appropriate step to compensate them for significant investment of their time and expertise.
Any questions or discussion?
Sorry, pardon me, Councilman Nogales. Just one quick amendment based on the feedback Councilman Pedrosa gave me. I'll work on this with the clerk. It's just two simple words. In the 7th whereas clause on the 2nd page, we just need to add the words "where applicable" after the word "submitted." Very simple.
Okay.
Linda, I'll get you a
And,
updated draft.
and we can consider that an amended motion?
When he has to move it when amended. as
Okay.
amended. Yep. So-
Question or
Sorry,
comment?
I apologize, Councilman.
I will support this, but I am perplexed because basically what transpired, and as our administrator said, we moved health plans and the level of complexity associated with this move was far beyond what was anticipated. And it would appear that Round Hill, in accepting accepted the responsibility to basically care and nurture every single employee who needed help, and there were a lot of them. In fact, the telephone numbers at our own personnel organization said, if you have any questions on health benefits, these are the people you call. I tend to be more of a purist when we come to bills. I like to know what the cost are, but in this particular case, I think these are the best estimates we could get for the cost. I will support it, but I certainly hope that as we move forward into this later on this year, where we are presented with bills, that we have more dynamic components of it, meaning cost, charges, hours, that kind of thing. But I will support 11B.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments before we go to vote? Roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I need a motion and a second. Sorry, motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Second? Is there a second?
As amended. Just as amended.
I'm sorry, as amended, the two-word amendment dictated by council. So I have a motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, roll call, please, to the amended 11B.
Councilman Padilla?
Yes.
Councilman Nogales?
Yes.
Councilman Pedrosa? Yes. Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Kirk?
Yes.
Council President, can you do 11C at the end? Can you skip 11C and then go DE and then come back to C?
I certainly
I have
can.
a conflict on C, so I'll step off.
All
I
right.
don't vote anyway, but.
Well, I
I'll
certainly
grab a
can,
drink in the
though, you
interim.
know, they're gonna, it's not gonna be too long from now. I'll move to 11D, authorizing an award of contract to Appraisal Systems, Inc. to perform professional appraisal inspections and related service in connection with the Township Reassessment Program for 2023 in an amount not to exceed $72,985.50. I think we are all pretty familiar with our assessment and program. Are there any questions before we go to vote?
I'd like to make one statement. The assessment process that we use, 20% of the residents are visited each year. So over a 5-year program, every house will be visited, but houses, even though they are not visited, will be reassessed in relation to their value with the neighborhood. So some people will say, gee, I didn't get a visit, but I got a new number. That is correct. Every house is evaluated either by a personal inspection or by juxtaposing that against the community. Thank you.
All right, is there a motion for 11C?
I'll make that motion.
D,
Same company we used before?
Yeah.
yeah, we've used them for a number of years. They've done a good job for us.
And if we don't maintain accurate, if our assessments fall below thresholds, the county can actually order us to do a township-wide reassessment.
Yeah, this
And
pro-
then the other thing that I found most interesting out of this, and maybe it's just given my time on the council, but if one were to file a tax appeal and they receive a reduction in their taxes, the school board, we do not get that money back from the school board or fire district. So if someone receives a tax bill, they fight the assessment, their assessment's lowered, we're still paying based upon their old assessment to the county and to the school board.
For that year.
For that year. So
That's
there's
true
al-
for the uncollectible, too. We
Yeah.
eat the uncollectibles.
So very important that we maintain current and accurate assessments, so.
All right, I have a motion.
Second.
Yes, I have a second. A vote at 11D, please.
Councilman Padilla?
Yes.
Councilman Nogales?
Yes.
Councilman Pedrosa? Councilman Ring?
Yes.
Yes. 11E, this authorizes an amendment to an agreement, authorizing an amendment of an agreement with Nature's Choice Corporation for yard waste recycling on property located at Foothill Road as a yard waste site. Brief explanation of this?
This is in reaction to an incident that took place. Mr. Savo worked with Mr. Genova and spoke with the operator to address some compliance issues to ensure that the township's interests are protected.
Okay, motion at 11E,
I'll move
please.
11E.
Second.
Well, I'd just like to comment on this,
Sure.
Michael, before. You know, along with this document, we have the site requirements and so on. And being in the neighborhood, so to speak, the one thing that I'd like to ask, that we as a township, if we could discuss with Nature's Choice, is if we can get a hydrant on Chimney Rock Road located closer to this site. For those of you who have never experienced a mulch fire, it is not a simple task to address. And having a hydrant more accessible than currently located on Chimney Rock Road would be a benefit to the local fire department when they have to respond to this site.
Back you up what Alan said. A number of years ago, I was at a mulch fire at Vollers, and it took 1 million gallons to get the mulch fire out, because not only are you putting water on it, but you got to tear it apart. You got to bring in equipment. So,
Well, I will voice what I'm seeing in Mr. Pappas's nodding approval that will be pursued. So I need a motion, please, at 11E.
And I'll make the motion.
and I'll second it.
Right, I have a motion and a second now, and a vote at 11E, please.
Councilman Padilla?
Yes.
Councilman Nogales?
Yes.
Councilman Joseph? Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Hurst?
Yes. All right, we're now going to go to 11C, noting that the mayor has recused himself from the dais. 11C is an award of contract for professional architectural services for the Senior Center Improvement Project to Settembrino Architects, 37 East Washington Avenue in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey, 07716, in the amount of $21,500, funded through the 2022 Senior Center Improvement Fund. Mr. Pappas.
Yes, we were fortunate to apply for and receive a grant of approximately $350,000 to make improvements to the senior center, specifically restroom facilities. There would be some referred to as touchless fixtures, doorways that would be automatically open. This was in response to the COVID pandemic. We have undergone a process to obtain proposals from architectural firms. This was the second attempt. It was I'm not sure if Mr. Corsini could give me the appropriate terminology, but we sought numerous submissions. As you can see in the resolution, there were 3 firms that did respond. The recommendation by the administration is Settembrino Architects, $21,500 versus the next 2, which was $45,400 and $54,218. Recommend this so we can begin the process of making plans to renovate the senior. Now, Mr. Nogales had visited the senior center, not the time when he learned how to bake quiches, but for another event, and he took a tour, and being the mechanic that he is, noticed a number of improvements beyond what is covered here that he noted would need to be made. And we have a very detailed memo from another staff member that had provided it to him, and it is on our list to try to address. I doubt we're going to be able to cover it here,
okay.
but it's certainly there.
But it isn't lost.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
In
thank
fact, we
you.
have a meeting on it, I think, week after next with Vicki and some of those.
Okay, thank you. I know this administration council has a long history that will continue in supporting the senior center and their program. So I think I stepped on the attempt to move it.
I'll move 11C.
And the second? All right, thank you. And a roll call, please.
Councilman Padilla?
Yes.
Councilman Nogales?
Yes.
Councilman Joseph? Green?
Yes.
President Burr?
Yes. Okay, we have reached the end of our agenda with the exception of our closed session, so I will read this. Be it resolved by the Bridgewater Township Council that this body will now hold a closed meeting to discuss litigation and a second topic?
Contract.
And contract negotiation.
Yes.
When and if the matters discussed become public record, this will be made known to the public at that time. The public is excluded from said meeting and further notice thereof is dispensed with, all in accordance with Section 8 and 4A of the Open Public Meetings Act. And just for my confirmation, Mr. Corsini, we will only return to public session for the purpose of adjourning. Okay, so no action will be taken when we resume in public session. It will be only to adjourn. I need a motion to go into closed session, please.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
And I have a second. And a roll call.
Councilman Padilla?
Yes.
Councilman Nogales?
Yes.
Councilman Joseph? Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Burr?
Yes. Thank you for joining us this evening.